Welcome to my channel, Reading Little Blue Books out loud. This right here is a little blue book. It is Little Blue Book number 239, and it is titled 26 Men and a Girl, written by Maxim Gorky. Copyright probably around 1924. This is part 3 of this book reading, and let's see, where did we leave off at? We left off at the top of page 32. And that's where we will pick up at. Okay, here we go. Listen to the old blackguard shouting, continued Sergei with delight, looking ahead with a piercing glance and smiling. Look at them, billing and cooing like a pair of doves. Don't you ever envy them? Matea? Matea watched with indifference the working of the two forward oars held by two figures, who moved backward and forward, forming sometimes, as they touched each other, one compact and dark mass. So you say you don't envy them, repeated Sergei. What is it to me? It's their sin, and they must answer for it, replied Matea quietly. Ironically, interjected Sergei, while he filled his pipe. Once more the small red patch of light glowed in the darkness, and the night grew thicker, and gray clouds sank lower toward the swollen river. Where did you get hold of that fine stuff, or does it come to you naturally? But you don't take after your father, my lad. Your father's a fine old chap. Look at him. He's 52 now, and see what a strapping wench he's carrying on with. She's a fine woman as ever wore shoe leather, and she loves him. It's no use denying it. She loves him, my lad. One can't help admiring him. He's such a trump, your father. He's the king of trumps. When he's at work, it's worthwhile watching him. And then, he's rich. And then, look how he's respected. And his head screwed on the right way. Yes, and you. You're not a bit like either your father or your mother. What would your father have done? Matea, do you think if old Anfisa had lived, that would have been a good joke? I should have liked to have seen how she'd have settled him. She was the right sort of woman, your mother. A real plunky one, she was. They were well matched. Matea remained silent, leaning on the pole and staring at the water. Sergei ceased talking. Forward on the raft was heard a woman's shrill laugh, followed by the deeper laugh of a man. Their figures, blurred by the mist, were nearly invisible to Sergei, who, however, watched them curiously. The man appeared as a tall figure, standing with legs wide apart, holding a pole, and half turned toward a shorter woman's figure, leaning on another pole, and standing a few paces away. She shook her forefinger at the man and giggled provokingly. Sergei turned away his head with a sigh, and after a few moments' silence began to speak again. Confound it all, but how jolly they seem together. It's good to see. Why can't I have something like that? I, a waif and a stray. I'd never leave such a woman. I'd always have my arms round her, and there'd be no mistake about my loving the little devil. I'd never had any luck with women. They don't like ginger hair. Women don't. No, she's a woman with fancies. She is. She's a sly little devil. She wants to see life. Are you asleep, Matea? No, answered Matea quietly. Well, how are you going to live? To tell the truth, you're as solitary as a post. That seems pretty hard. Where can you go? You can't earn your living among strangers. You're too absurd. What's the use of a man who can't stand up for himself? A man's got to have teeth and claws in this world. They'll all have a go at you. Can you stick up for yourself? How would you set about it? Damn it all! Where the devil could you go? Said Matea, suddenly arousing himself. I shall go away. I shall go in the autumn to the Caucasian mountains, and that will be the end of it all. My God! If only I could get away from you all, soulless, godless men. To get away from you, that's my only hope. What do you live for? Where is your God? He's nothing but a name. Do you live in Christ? Are you wolves? That's what you are. But over there live other men, whose souls live in Christ. Their hearts contain love, and they are athirst for the salvation of the world. But you are beasts, spewing out filth. But other men there are. I have seen them. They call me, and I must go to them. They gave me the book of Holy Writ. And they said, "Read, man of God, our beloved brother, read the word of truth." And I read, and my soul was renewed by the word of God. I shall go away. I shall leave all you ravening wolves. You are rendering each other's flesh. Accursed be ye. Matthias spoke in a passionate whisper, as if overpowered by the intensity of his contemplative rapture. His anger with the ravening wolves, and his desire to be with those other men, whose souls aspired toward the salvation of the world. Sergei was taken aback. He remained quiet for some time, open-mouthed, holding his pipe in his hand. After a few moments, though he glanced around, and said in a deep, rough voice, "Damn it all! Why, you're turned to bad and all at once. Why did you read that book? It was very likely an evil one. Well, be off! Be off! If not, there'll be an end of you. Be off with you before you become a regular beast yourself. And who are these fellows in the Caucasus? Monks? Or what?" But the fire of Matthias' spirit died down as quickly as it had been kindled to a flame. He gasped with the exertion as he worked the pull, and muttered to himself below his breath. Sergei waited some time for the answer, which did not come. His simple, hardy nature was quelled by the grim and death-like stillness of the night. He wanted to recall the fullness of life, to wake the solitude with sound, to disturb and trouble the hidden, meditative silence of the laden mass of water flowing slowly to the sea, and of the dull, threatening clouds hanging motionless in the air. At the other end of the raft there was life, and it called on him to live. Forward he could hear every now and then bursts of contented laughter, exclamations, sounds that seemed to stand out against the silence of the night, laden with the breath of spring and provoking such passionate life desires. "Hold hard, Matea! You'll catch it again from the old man. Look out there!" said Sergei, who could not stand the silence any longer, and watching Matea, who aimlessly moved his pole backward and forward in the water. Matea wiped his moist brow, stood quietly leaning with his breast against the pole and panting. "There are few steamers tonight," continued Sergei. "We've only passed one these many hours." Seeing that Matea had no intention of answering, Sergei replied quietly to himself, "That's because it's too early in the season. It's only just beginning. We shall soon be at Kazan. The Volga pulls hard. She has a mighty strong back that can carry all. Why are you standing still like that? Are you angry? Hi there, Matea." "What's the matter?" Matea cried in a vexed tone. "Nothing, you strange fellow. But why can't you talk? You're always thinking. Leave it alone. Thinking is bad for a man. A wise sort of fellow you are. You think, and all the time you can't understand that you're a fool at bottom. Ha!" And Sergei, very well satisfied with his own superiority, cleared his throat, remained quiet for a moment, whistled a note, and then continued to develop his theme. "Thinking. Is that an occupation for a working man? Look at your father. He doesn't think much. He lives. He loves your wife. And they laugh at you together. You wise fool. That's about it. Just listen to them. Blast them. I believe Mark is already with child. Never fear. The child won't feature you. He'll be a fine, lusty lad, like Solon himself. But he'll be your child. He'll call you father. And you won't be his father, but his brother. And his real father will be his grandfather. That's a nice state of things. What a filthy family. But they're a strapping pair. Isn't that true, Matea? Sergei! In a passionate sobbing whisper, in the name of Christ, I entreat you, don't tear my soul to pieces. Don't brand me with fire. Leave me alone. Do be quiet. In the name of God and Christ, I beg you not to speak to me. Don't disturb me. Don't drain my heart's blood. I'll throw myself in a river, and yours will be the sin, and a greater sin it will be. I should lose my soul. Don't force me to it. For God's sakes, I entreat you. The silence of the night was troubled with shrill, unnatural sobbing, and Matea fell on the deck of the raft, as if a blast from the overhanging clouds had struck him down. Come, come, growled Sergei, anxiously watching his mate, writhing on a deck as if scorched with fire. What a strange man! He ought to have told me if it was not quite... You've been torturing me all the way. Why? Am I your enemy? Matea sobbed again. You're a strange lad. A Roman, murmured Sergei, confused and offended. How could I know? I couldn't tell you'd take on like that. Understand, then, that I want to forget forever my shame, my terrible torture. You're a cruel lot. I shall go away and stay away forever. I can't stand it any more. Yes, be off with you, cried Sergei across the raft, accentuating his exclamation with a loud and cynical curse. Then he seemed to shrink together, as if himself afraid of the terrible drama which was unfolding itself before him. Drama which he was now compelled to understand. Hello! There! I'm calling you! Are you deaf? Sounded up the river the voice of Solon. What are you about there? What are you bawling about? Ahoy! Ahoy! It seemed as if Solon enjoyed shouting and breaking the heavy silence of the river with his deep voice, full of strength and health. The cries succeeded each other, thrilling the warm, moist air, and seeming to crush down on Matea's feeble form. He rose and once more pressed his body against the steering pole. Sergei shouted in reply to the master with all his strength, and cursed him at the same time under his breath. The two voices broke through and filled the silence of the night. Then they seemed to meet in one deep note, like the sound of a great horn. Once more rising to shrillness, they floated in the air, gradually sank away, and were lost. Silence reigned once more. Through the cleft clouds on the dark water the yellow splashes of moonlight fell, and after glittering a moment disappeared, swept away in the moist gloom. The raft continued on its way downstream amid silence and darkness. And we'll take a break. That's the end of chapter 1. Get a little drink. And chapter 2. Near one of the forward poles stood Solon Petrov in a red shirt, open at the neck, showing his wonderful throat and hairy chest, hard as an anvil. A thatch of gray hair fell over his forehead, under which laughed great black warm eyes. His sleeves, turned up to the elbow, showed the veins standing out on his arms as they held the pole. Solon was leaning slightly forward and looking watchfully ahead. Marka stood a few paces from him, glancing with a satisfied smile at the strong form of her lover. They were both silent and busy with their several thoughts. He was peering into the distance, and she followed the movements of his virile, bearded face. That must be a fisherman's fire, said he, turning toward her. It's all right. We're keeping on our course. Ouch! And he puffed out a full, hot breath, and gave a powerful shove with his pole. Don't tire yourself, Mashurka, she continued, watching her. Don't tire yourself, Mashurka, he continued, watching her as with her pole she made a skillful movement. She was round and plump, with black bright eyes and ruby cheeks. Barefooted, dressed only in a damp petticoat, which clung to her body and showed the outline of her figure, she turned her face to Solon and, smiling pleasantly, said, You make too much care of me. I'm all right. I kiss you, but I don't take care of you, answered Solon, moving his shoulders. That's not good enough, she replied, provokingly, and they both were silent, looking at each other with desiring eyes. Under the rafts, the water gurgled musically. On the right bank, very far off, a cock crew. Swaying lightly under their feet, the raft floated on toward a point where the darkness dissolved into light tones, and the clouds took on themselves clearer shapes and less somber hues. Solon Petrovitch, do you know what they were shouting about there? I know. I bet you and I know. It was Matea who was complaining about us to Sergei, and it was he who cried out with trouble, and Sergei was cursing us. Marka questioned anxiously Solon's face, which after her words became grim and coldly stubborn. Well? Shortly. Well, that's all. If that's all, there is nothing to say. Don't get angry. Angry with you? I should like to be angry with you, but I can't. You love Marcia, she whispered coaxingly, leaning toward him. You bet, answered Solon with emphasis, stretching out toward her his powerful arms. Come now, don't tease me. She twisted her body with the movements of a cat, and once more leaned toward him. We shall upset the steering again, whispered he, kissing her face, which burned under his lips. Shut up now. They can see us at the other end, and motioning aft, with her head, she struggled to free herself. But he held her more tightly, still with one arm, and managed the pull with the other hand. They can see us? Let them see us. I spit on them all. I'm sinning, that's true. I know it, and shall have to answer to God for it. But still, you never were his wife. You were free. You belonged to yourself. He's suffering, I know. And what about me? Is my position a pleasant one? Is it true that you were not his wife? But all the same, with my position, how must I feel now? It is not a dreadful sin before God. It is a sin. I know it all, and I've gone through everything, because it's a thing worth doing. We love only once, and we may die any day. Oh, Marka, if I'd only waited a month before marrying you to Matea, nothing of this would have happened. Directly after the death of Anfisa, I would have sent my friends to propose for you, and all would have been right. Right before the law, without sin, without shame. That was my mistake, and this mistake will take away from me 5 or 10 years of my life. Such a mistake as that makes an old man of one before one's time. Solon Petrov spoke with decision, but quietly, while an expression of inflexible determination flashed from his face, giving him the appearance of a man who was ready then and there to fight and struggle for the right to love. Well, it's all right now. Don't trouble yourself any more. We have talked about it more than once already, whispered Marka, freeing herself gently from his arms and returning to her oar. He began working his pull backward and forward rapidly and energetically, as if he wished to get rid of the load that weighed on his breast and cast a shadow over his fine face. Day broke gradually. The clouds, losing their density, crept slowly away on every side, as if reluctantly giving place to the sunlight. The surface of the river grew lighter and took on its cold gleam of polished steel. Not long ago he talked with me about it, father, he said. It is not a deadly shame for you and for me. Give her up. He meant you, explained Solon, and smiled. Give her up, he said. Return to the right path. My dear son, I said, go away if you want to save your skin. I shall tear you to pieces like a rotten rag. There will be nothing left of your great virtue. It's a sorrow to me to think that I'm your father, you puny wretch. He trembled. Father, he said, am I in the wrong? You are, I said, you whining cur, because you are in my way. You are, I said, because you can't stand up for yourself. You're lifeless, rotten carrion. If only, I said, you were strong, one could kill you, but even that isn't possible. One pities you, poor wretched creature. He only wept. Oh, Marka, this sort of thing makes one good for nothing. Anyone else would get their heads out of the noose as soon as possible, but we are in it, and we shall perhaps tighten it round each other's necks. What do you mean? Said Marka, looking at him fearfully, as he stood there grim, strong, and cold. Nothing. If he were to die, that's all. If he were to die, what a good thing it would be. Everything would be straight then. I would give all my land to your family and make them shut their mouths, and we too might go to Siberia or somewhere far away. They would ask, who is she? My wife. Do you understand? We could get some sort of paper or document. We could open a shop somewhere in a village and live, and we could expatriate our sin before God. We could help other people to live, and they would help us to appease our consciences. Isn't that so, Marta? Yes, she said with a deep sigh, closing her eyes as if in thought. They remained silent for a while, and the water murmured. He is sickly. He will perhaps die soon, said Solon after a time. Please God, may it be so, said Marka, as if in a prayer, and making the sign of the cross. The rays of the spring sun broke through the clouds and touched the water with a rainbow and golden tints. At the breath of the wind, all nature thrilled, quickened, and smiled. The blue sky between the clouds smiled back. At the sun-warmed waters, the raft, moving on, left the clouds astern. Gathering in a thick and heavy mass, they hung motionless and dreaming over the bright river, as if seeking a way to escape from the ardent spring sun, which, rich in color and in joy, seemed the enemy of these symbols of winter tempests. Ahead the sky grew clearer and brighter, and the morning sun, powerless to warm but dazzling bright as it glitters in early spring, rose stately and beautiful from the purple gold waves of the river, and mounted higher and even higher into the blue, limpid sky. On the right showed the brown, high banks of the river, surmounted by green woods. On the left, emerald green fields glittered with dew diamonds. In the air floated the smell of the earth, of fresh springtime grass, blended with an aromatic scent of a fir wood. Sergei and Matea stood as if rooted to their oars, but the expression on their faces could not be distinguished by those on the forward part of the raft. Solon glanced at Marka. She was cold. She leaned forward on her pole in a doubled-up attitude. She was looking ahead with dreaming eyes, and a mysterious, charming smile preyed on her lips. Such a smile as makes even an ugly woman charming and desirable. "Look ahead, lads! Ahoy! Ahoy!" hailed Solon, with all the force of his lungs, feeling a powerful pulse of energy and strength in his strong breast. And all around seemed to tremble with his cry. The echo resounded long from the high banks on either side. And that's the end of that story. And I think we'll stop there. And that's the end of part 3 of 26 Men and a Girl, written by Maxim Gorky. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in part 4.